In 2015, Chevrolet decided that a midsize truck should come out, and with the first gen Chevrolet Colorado being a little too old and also pretty small for the midsize segment compared to the Toyota Tacoma, the Honda Ridgeline back then, Chevrolet decided that brand new Colorado should come out, and in 2015 the all-new Chevrolet Colorado has came out, and it is much bigger, much more muscular looking, as well as more efficient, much more spacious. And we're going to be taking a quick look on the Chevrolet Colorado. Now, with this all-new design, you also have a brand new frame, a brand new body, like in this particular model, and you also have a bunch of different configurations that you can get with this truck. So for instance, mine is the work truck, and I have the extended cab, and I also have the 4-cylinder motor. Okay, but with Chevy you can also have multiple different configurations. So with the Colorado, you can come with a extended cab with a 6-foot bed like this one. You can also get a crew cab with a 5-foot bed or a 6-foot bed, so you can basically have a big mid-sized truck basically. You can also opt for a manual transmission for only the 4-cylinder model, as well as a automatic transmission with the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder or the 3.6 liter V6. This is the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, and if you want to get the 3.6 liter V6, you can get around 306 horsepower and I believe 290 pound-feet of torque. Alright, so going over the engine right quick, this is actually the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder motor, and Chevrolet had two other motors that they had to come out with, also the 3.6 liter V6 as well as the 2.7 liter turbo diesel 4-cylinder, and which wasn't a bad motor at all. It was a very torquey motor. However, the fuel efficiency on that motor wasn't actually the best compared to the 4-cylinder model. This particular model right here gives, I believe, 18 miles per gallon on the city and also 21 on the highway, which isn't bad at all for a truck. Now, also with the Chevrolet Colorado, you also come with as standard with the extended cab, it comes with a 6-foot bed, and also if you decide to get the crew cab model, you will get a 5-foot bed. Okay, but you can also opt for the 6-foot bed for the actual crew cab model, leaving you with a pretty big size crew cab mid-size pickup truck. All right, now stepping inside of the Colorado, you do have side steps. Obviously, for me being 6 foot tall, I really don't need them, but stepping inside of the Colorado, you have a very high seating position, but it's very mediocre. It's nothing bad whatsoever. It's actually easy to get in, much more easier than getting inside maybe a Ford F-150, a Silverado in this case. But once you step inside of the Colorado, now keep in mind this is the work truck trim. Don't mind this at all. Unfortunately, I can't talk about the infotainment because I have a JVC infotainment system, so I'm not gonna talk about that. However, stepping inside of the truck, you have a really good seating position. The seats are very comfortable. These are cloth seats also, and you also have a very good view out of everything else. You also have a very large mirrors, which I actually really appreciate. There's a lot of car manufacturers that come these days with very small mirrors, and I appreciate Chevy still giving out these large mirrors. It's a lot easier to see your blind spots and stuff, so I really appreciate that. You also have your rearview mirror with your small window, small view of the window, because half of the bed covers that. And you also have a very simple layout here. Don't mind this, but anyways, you also have a very simple layout. You have 2 cup holders. You have a little storage here where I just keep a Buddha and a piece of rock, and then also you have your side storage here where I place my card, my charger, where I just charge my phone. And you also have the 6-speed manual transmission, which I will talk about more as we start driving. Now let's go check out the back seats right quick. Okay, now as you can see with the extended cab model, you don't really have that much space. Obviously for me, I don't have space whatsoever to sit down, so I am not sitting down. I refuse to sit down. However, what you do get is you do get 2 back seats. In case you're bringing somebody who's really small, or in this case smaller children, these guys will sit comfortably. I just have my hat and also my visor sitting here basically at all times. However, what's a good thing about this extended cab model is you also have some extra storage. You have 2 cup holders, which unfortunately the camera doesn't show that. You also have 2 seat belts here. You also have a USB port right here, as well as some extra storage in between the center console. What you also have, and this is something that I like also, you actually have extra storage when you lift the seat up. All you have to do basically, you have the little tab right here. All you have to do is pull that up, lift this up, and you have extra storage in the bottom of the seat. Now typically I would hold an umbrella or straps, where in case I had to carry my kayak and stuff like that. It's actually pretty useful, and I actually really like this feature that the Colorado has, and this is something that I really appreciate Chevy doing and actually showing that, you know, their storage, even though with an extended cab, it's still pretty conservative. All right, now stepping inside of the Colorado, this is, keep in mind, in my seating position, so it's already pretty far back. However, you do have quite a bit of space here. Now you also have a very similar interior. You also have cheap plastics here. However, this is a work truck trim. If you want to go for a higher trim, you can go for an LT model. I believe they come with an LT Z2 and also Premier. They also have Z71 packages, so you can option this truck out pretty loaded. You can also have a Z72 package, which with the Z72 package, it comes with a lot of off-road goodies like not Fox shocks. Chevy actually has their own suspension system, and also it's more like a Baja looking truck, and it looks great. But that's a very expensive truck. That's a almost $50,000 truck. This one, brand new, when as a work truck, it was about, I would say, $25,000, which isn't a bad deal for a work truck that's, you just need to go places. And also, you also have a manual transmission. Now keep in mind, Chevrolet actually discontinued the 6-speed manual transmission for the Colorado. So if you want to get a manual Colorado, you can only get a 4-cylinder model with the extended cab for a manual. Okay, and this was and in order to get one, you had to get one from 2015 to, I believe, 2017, and that was it for the manual Colorados. But sitting in here, let me try to get in here right quick. I may have talked about the interior already, but I also want you to see how all the amenities are. Okay, you have the 6-speed manual here. If you so desire to get an automatic transmission, it comes with a 6-speed automatic, which isn't a bad transmission whatsoever. Still a really good transmission. But as a work truck trim, and I'm going to just talk about the work truck, you have very simple buttons here. In total, I've counted maybe almost 12 buttons in the center console. You have these 3 in the bottom, which is your hazards right here, your dim light in the back of the bed, and also your traction control. Okay, you also have your AC controls right here, your temperature, your fan, where do you want your AC to blow, and then also right here as well. Okay, also have very simple dials here, basically, where you could just turn on your lights through this bottom piece right here, and you also have your wiper controls here. So it's a very basic interior. I can't really talk about the infotainment too much because this is a modified interior, but let's take it for a drive. All right, taking off in the Chevrolet Colorado. What is it like to drive? How is it as a truck? How is it with the manual transmission? A lot of people don't really know that these Colorados actually came with a manual, and nobody has really ever noticed how the truck was with the 4-cylinder motor. So taking off in a Chevrolet Colorado, very smooth. Typically, Chevy has always been really good at making their trucks very smooth on the road, driving, cruising, and stuff like that. Chevy has always been known to make their trucks very smooth, and that's something that I really appreciate. I've been in Silverados as well, Silverado HDs, and I've always noticed that their trucks have always been very smooth on the road. That's something that I always had to give Chevy, that they always know how to make their trucks very smooth. However, how is this 2.5 motor? This motor it's not bad whatsoever. I mean, it gives decent gas mileage for a 4-cylinder. You know, on the highway, I get an average of, even though it says on the average I get maybe 21 miles per gallon, I actually get around 25 miles per gallon on the highway, 24, 25, in between that number, which isn't bad whatsoever. And on the city, I would average maybe 20 miles per gallon on the best. But you have to drive very conservatively. Obviously, if you drive a little more aggressive, in the city, expect to maybe get around 18 miles per gallon, 19 miles per gallon. And, you know, if you get less than that, you're just a crazy ass driver. I'm just being honest. But on the highway, it's very, very smooth in the highway. But I will say one thing. Due to the fact that this is a work truck trim, I'm going to just make a theory that maybe since this is a work truck trim, there's a lot of cheap parts in here, and this truck is built a little cheaply. On the highway, When you're going above 80 miles an hour or above, I noticed that this truck actually vibrates a lot in the interior. Now, yeah, cars will vibrate in the interior, obviously, when there's when it's windy and stuff like that. Of course, that's natural. However, this truck actually vibrates pretty violently on the highway. Obviously, if you're going 70 miles an hour or less than that, it's very smooth. It doesn't really vibrate in this interior. But when you're going 80 or above, which is kind of insane if you do that, it does vibrate quite a bit in this truck, and that is something that you will notice a huge difference on this truck when you're driving in a highway more than 80 miles an hour. But just cruising on a regular city drive, it's very smooth. There's no vibrates at all in this interior. The shifter is very smooth. The shifter, actually, I want to talk about the shifter right quick. So with the shifter, it's a very long shifter. That's one thing. And in my channel, I actually have a Scion FRS that I reviewed, and it was a long time ago since I reviewed that. But that shifter was way shorter than this truck. Obviously, that's a sports car. This is a pickup truck, so there's a bit of a difference when it comes to something like that. But this truck has a very long shifter, but it's actually very easy to understand. Once you drive this truck for maybe a good hour or so, you know, I've driven this truck for over 6 months already. This is actually a very smooth truck. The shifters is very easy to use. It's very long. The only complaint I do have is maybe when you put it into reverse, you do have to push down and actually go left down, which it's not a bad thing. Mazda has the same thing, and a lot of other cars do. The only thing is this truck, you hardly ever notice sometimes that you actually are shifting into reverse. Sometimes you're thinking you're shifting into 6 until the reverse camera shows that you're into reverse. Otherwise, you don't know what the hell is going on. But regardless, the shifter is great. The clutch is another thing that I have a little bit of a complaint about. This clutch is pretty numb. So if you drive a bunch of manual cars, you kind of understand a little thing called bite point. With bite point, you actually have a feeling of when the clutch is engaging. This truck, it does have a bite point. You could feel it, but it's not as noticeable as maybe a sports car or just a regular car in general. I mean, with regular cars with small 4 cylinders, the clutch is so light that you're not going to really ever know when the clutch is engaging. With cars with bigger motors, you will quite a bit. With this truck, this has a 4-cylinder motor, so the clutch is still very light and numb. However, it's also pretty engaging at the same time. The only thing is that with me personally, I like when the clutch engages early. That's something that I said in the FRS video a while back. And this truck does the same thing like the FRS. It engages very late, and this clutch is very, very tall. So being the fact that this is a very tall clutch, basically what I mean is a very long clutch that you have to put your foot all the way down to the floor. This clutch is the same thing, but it's actually a little worse than the FRS. I mean, go figure, it's a truck, so don't expect an amazing performance clutch. But it's a very long clutch, and that's something I do have to complain about. And it engages all the way nearly at the end, and due to the fact that it's so numb, you kind of don't know when it engages at first. I have stalled this truck just a couple times in my driving this truck, and it does get frustrating, and sometimes I do miss shifts and stuff like that. It does get frustrating, but after you get used to it for a while, you get the hang of how this truck drives and stuff. But those are really the only 2 complaints I have about this truck, really. Driving this truck on a daily basis is actually really comfortable. I don't have any complaints about how this truck drives on a daily basis. It drives really good. It shifts fairly smooth as long as you shift well and, you know, carefully. If you're not banging gears and stuff like that, the truck is a very, very, very smooth truck. And this engine, I want to talk about this engine right quick, because this engine is actually a very impressive motor. You know, I'm not a fan, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of Chevy, and I really don't like Chevy 4-cylinders. This is one of the only 4-cylinders that I'm actually very impressed with, besides the Camaro 2-liter. This motor is very smooth, and it's fairly powerful. If you get the manual transmission, you're gonna notice the power a lot more in this 4-cylinder than if you get the automatic version. Keep in mind of that. But driving this motor, it's very, very, very smooth. It's very quiet as well. It has a pretty deep tone as well compared to any other 4-cylinders. I've been into a lot of cars with 4-cylinders. The FRS, my old Mazda 3, and a bunch of other cars. And this 4-cylinder has a very deep tone for this truck, and it sounds pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it actually sounds pretty good. And the only thing is also, you don't know when this truck redlines as well, so you have to be careful if you ever decide to just full throttle the truck. You have to be careful when to shift. This truck, I believe it has a red line of 6,500 RPM. I don't know what's the exact measurement. I'm just guessing that it's 6,500 RPM. But driving on a regular basis, it's very smooth, very quiet. It has a very deep tone. That's something that I do like about this truck. It has a very deep tone for a 4-cylinder, so it doesn't actually sound that bad. Usually, typically 4-cylinders will sound horrible, but this one doesn't sound bad at all. Now, if you decide to straight pipe this truck, it might sound like a fucking Civic. I'm sorry that I'm cursing, by the way. I'm just saying it might sound like a Civic, and it's kind of funny that a Civic is right next to me right now. But if you just keep the muffler stock, you keep the exhaust stock, you don't make it loud. It's a very quiet truck. It's a very smooth truck, and you have a pretty powerful motor if you opt for the manual transmission. We're about to get on a highway right now. I'm going to talk about how it drives on the highway as well, even though I'm just talking about how this truck drives in general. But on the highway, this truck is actually pretty impressive. I'll give it a little bit of gas just so you can get an idea of how the truck sounds when you're giving a little bit of gas, as well as how the truck accelerates. This truck, I believe, with the manual transmission, it accelerates 0 to 60 in about 9 seconds. It's not fast whatsoever by all means. Nothing compared to maybe a sports car, FRS, or a compact car. However, it's not bad at accelerating whatsoever. For a big truck with a 4-cylinder, that's not bad whatsoever. And with 200 horsepower, you do feel it. And also with the torque. With 191 pound-feet of torque, this truck does go. The only thing is, it's not a fast truck, so don't expect it to be stupid fast, but expect it to accelerate better than maybe you expect on a regular 4-cylinder truck. All right, we're about to get on the highway. We're going to go on 575 in Pembroke Pines. So on the highway, like I said before, if you're going above 80 miles an hour, the truck does like to vibrate quite a bit. But other than that, it's a very smooth truck. It does give decent gas mileage for a truck. So we're about to get on a turn. I'll give it a little bit of gas. Not gonna give it too much, obviously. So once we get into this turn, I'm gonna just talk about how the acceleration is. It does get to 60 pretty quick, and when you're cruising on 6th gear, it actually goes to maybe 80 with no issues, even if you're on 6th gear. So I'm giving it a little bit of gas right now. I'm at 65 miles an hour. Shift to 4th. It has no issues whatsoever going to 60 with no issues whatsoever. And it's a great cruiser on the highway. Now, if you see my phone vibrating quite a bit, it's typical. That's the same thing that happened on my other reviews. It's just my camera mount is not the best at all. But now we're cruising on the highway. How is it like to drive on the highway? Besides the vibrate that I complained about, if you're going 70 miles an hour, which is what I'm doing right now, it's very, very, very smooth. You don't really feel the road that much. It's also very quiet. I was very surprised when I started driving this truck on the highway. This truck was way quieter than I expected. For a work truck, you expect maybe this truck to be pretty loud, maybe have loud tires, maybe be cheaply built, that you're gonna hear a lot of wind noise. You actually don't, and that's something that I was very surprised about when I started to drive this truck. I was maybe expecting, okay, this truck is gonna be a little louder. No, it's actually very quiet on the road. And on the highway, it's very quiet too. You can listen to your music peacefully with no issues whatsoever, and have no issues talking to somebody next to you, I don't know, your friend, your parents, or whatever, about anything, without having a ridiculous amount of wind noise. You do have wind noise, of course, that's in every single car, but it's not as bad as you think it is. Maybe on a work truck, you expect that there's going to be some wind noise. In a Colorado, I'm glad to say that there's not a lot of wind noise. And also with these tires, these are the stock tires. These are the Wrangler tires that any typical truck will come with. Not bad at all. Obviously, these tires, I've heard reviews about them, and they're not the best tires in the planet. They wear out pretty quickly. I haven't switched these tires yet. They still have some meat in them, but these tires are still fairly quiet on the road. I have no complaints on how quiet the noise, the road noise that I'm hearing with these tires. I do hear a little bit, but obviously I've driven this truck a lot. I put almost 8,000 miles already on this truck within 6 months, which is kind of ridiculous. I do a lot of highway mileage, but on the highway, this truck is very easy to drive. I'm going 75 miles an hour right now, and this truck is going very smooth. It's very easy, and that's pretty much all I have to mainly say about this truck. If you're looking for a pickup truck, what I would recommend is you look at what you're looking for.
I would like to do a video maybe at some point, maybe today or I don't know, some other time, where I would like to just talk about what truck is good for you. Obviously, if you're not looking for a gas guzzler, you might not want to look for a full-size truck. But if you do need a full-size truck, but you want something that's good in gas, an F-150 wouldn't be that bad. Or you can also look for the Ram Echo diesels or the Chevy Duramax diesels. You can look for those also. They come in the full-size truck segment now, not in the heavy duties only. But if you don't need a full-size truck, a mid-size truck isn't bad whatsoever to look for. You have the Colorado, you have the Honda Ridgeline, which I don't personally recommend, but you know, if you want a very smooth car, a Ridgeline is not bad. You have the Tacoma, you have the Nissan Frontier, and you have the Ford Ranger, as well as the Jeep Gladiator. Okay, you have to look at also different prices on what you're looking for and what spec do you want. What is a good motor that you need? Do you need a gas efficient motor, or do you need a powerful motor? That's something that you have to look for. And this is why I actually like the Chevy Colorado in this, because you have a variety of things that you can do. You want a full-size, mid-size truck, you can get a Colorado with a 6-foot bed as well as a crew cab. Okay, do you want a powerful motor? You can get a 3.6 liter V6 or the Duramax 4-cylinder that you can get as well. Do you need efficiency? I would recommend this 4-cylinder. It's actually pretty good in gas compared to some of the other trucks. But you also have a bunch of other trucks that you can look for. You have the Ranger, like I said, the Tacoma. Obviously, the Ranger and the Tacoma, they're the next biggest competitors. The Jeep Gladiator, if you really want a Jeep Gladiator, I love those trucks, but I wouldn't want to get a $40,000 truck at a base as a base model. This truck starts at $25,000 with the crew cab model, expected to be a little more. And if you start optioning up for maybe an LT or an up, you expect to spend around $35,000, close to $40,000, but you get a pretty loaded truck, and it's a pretty spacious truck as well. The Ranger is about the same space, the Tacoma is about the same space as well, so don't really expect too much about which is better in space. They're all about the same thing. I know the Ranger may be the smallest one besides the Ridgeline, might be the smallest one because you cannot get the 6-foot bed in the crew cab configuration. Only the Tacoma actually comes with that, and also the Frontier as well. I wouldn't recommend the Frontier as well either, because it's a ridiculously old truck. I mean, if you really need a cheap truck, by all means get a Frontier. It's a still reliable truck, and you can also get, you know, the same amount of amenities. And if you really don't care about the interior look, space and stuff like that, get a Frontier. It's a very simple truck, and it's also the cheapest one. But Nissan is coming out, I've heard, with an all-new Frontier very soon, just like how they did with the Titan. So I hope that Nissan does come with a really nice Frontier. But the Colorado isn't a bad choice to look for. What I would say to be aware about the Colorados, be aware about the automatic transmissions on the V6 models. The Duramax models also had a few recalls. That is something I was aware about. But if the recalls were already done, the Duramax models aren't that bad of a model. The V6 models, they are pretty problematic with the automatic transmissions. The 4-cylinder is the most reliable out of all the Colorados. You can get a crew cab with the 4-cylinder, no issues whatsoever. Obviously, it's not going to be an LT. I think the highest trim for this 4-cylinder is an LT, and an LT is good enough, to be honest with you. But this motor is fantastic. I'm not really entirely sure how the automatic is in the 4-cylinder, but I haven't heard that many issues about the automatics on the 4-cylinder, so it might be a good transmission. The manual transmission, obviously it's a manual, so there's not that much that you need to really be fully aware about. But I'm gonna do a little video about all the trucks and stuff like that. I just wanted to talk about how the Colorado is as a truck and how is it like to drive. I'm gonna probably do a little quick video later on about what truck you want to look for. But thank you guys, I really appreciate it. Please subscribe to the channel. It will mean a lot to me. I want to keep doing this stuff. It's entertaining, and whenever I'm not working and stuff, I just like to do this little stuff here and there just to talk shit about generally anything about cars and stuff like that. So it's fun to me. So thank you guys for watching the video. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.